Welcome to the Stoic Thunder Podcast, taking an ancient philosophy for a 21st century test drive. Learning on the way. I had a specific goal in mind when I started this podcast. I wanted to introduce people to philosophy that would be as interesting as it was useful. When I started to entertain the idea of moving in this direction, a friend of mine told me the world needs Stoicism. Although, depending on the branch, philosophy deals with a great deal that pertains to our lives, how we view morals, how we frame ethics, and much, much more. I could jump on Twitter this very moment and dive into a varied and spirited debate or conversation regarding a plethora of philosophical viewpoints. But for a while, even before discovering Stoicism, I often couldn't get past the noise. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm part of a community which for the most part attempts to view things skeptically. So with that, there is often quite strong and visceral reactions. I weighed in on some discussions, kept my distance with others, especially if I was not well versed in the topic at hand, and therefore was able to observe who was successful in their endeavours for amicable discussion, and which ones, although well intended, ended up shouting the void. I wondered if it was the best use of my time. Some seemed to thrive on the discourse, but I kept thinking, especially in regards to when facts were being disputed, would it not be more useful to understand how we perceive truth, how our judgments are formed, and why are they so goddamn important to us? Now, of course, some of the often disputed and explosive topics on social media tend to be things that we should care about and seek to understand. Politics, societal issues, climate change, etc. And I appreciate that there are those that have a vested interest in getting their point across. But something always irks me about the way people can come across. This is of course a judgment, but it's hard not to sometimes view people's comments as an extension of their ego. It's hard for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows. Epictetus. There are psychological terms that are thrown about when a heated conversation rears its fiery head on a live chat or comment section. Cognitive dissonance, Dunning-Kruger, confirmation bias, and so on. And often they appear warranted. What I find interesting is when I view these comments, invariably there is someone who has a lot of facts, puts forth a solid argument, and quite rightly at some point becomes frustrated and allows their judgments to hijack the conversation. The frustration of having an interlocutor who is reluctant to even entertain your points is a pretty standard event online. So much so that when an honest conversation happens with people of opposing views, it comes as somewhat of a surprise. When it comes to intellect, I don't have an ego to bruise, and I refuse to see that as not having passions this way or that. It's just, when it comes to knowledge, I feel it should never be a destination. It should be an ever-receding horizon. How boring would it be to know all, and even worse, becoming so convinced of a particular position that you couldn't respect other viewpoints if you tried?